Hi, everyone. This is Dr. David Tranter, and today I want to talk about a kind of a misunderstanding that I think I'm hearing a lot lately as I talk to educators across Canada, and it has to do with disruptive, even unsafe behavior in the classroom, and notions of self-regulation and sort of emotional safety, psychological safety, even physical safety. And as we know, um, research is showing that across Canada and beyond, in other countries as well, um, educators are facing more and more, not just disruptive behavior in the classroom, but disrespectful behavior, and even at times violent behavior. And people are really struggling about how do we balance mental health and well-being and dysregulation with creating safe, classroom safe schools for everyone, students and educators alike. And this raises a kind of an interesting, I think, again, misunderstanding that I'm hearing. And it kind of goes like this. Educators are saying, I've got students in my class who are pretty disruptive. And we know kind of post-pandemic that, as I said, that's been on the rise. And when I ask them, well, why do you think that's happening? What's underlying that? Most educators tell me it's dysregulation. Students are clearly quite dysregulated in my classroom, and that's leading them to behave in ways that are disruptive. Um, okay, that may be true. That might be true. Um, but when we kind of scratch the surface of that connection a little bit more, um, what I'm finding is that many educators have been led to believe that when you have a student who is dysregulated, who and isn't self-regulating, that the solution to that is that they need to learn the skills of self-regulation. And that they're lacking the skills of self-regulation, and that what those students need is a self-regulation skills training program, some sort of program in which they learn those skills, or maybe they need to go and get counseling with a social worker, psychologist, some sort of intervention, so they can learn self-regulation skills in a kind of therapy room and then bring them back to the classroom. Now that they're learning, they've got these self-regulation skills, they can come back and kind of work with others in the classroom in a way that's effective. Um, and um, deeper in the name of, as we kind of look deeper into that, in the name of um, supporting mental health, well-being, trauma sensitivity, even inclusion and equity, many teachers are saying, I don't want to blame the student for their lack of self-regulation skills. I get it that they're struggling. So I'm going to let slide in my classroom behavior that's quite disruptive, even behavior that is disrespectful, even behavior that might be considered violent toward the teacher, possibly toward others, but certainly really disruptive. And this is another sort of problem with this idea um, that I want things to be safe for them. So I'm not going to intervene as I might otherwise because I want them to feel safe in my classroom. And I'm going to let this kind of go until we can get them some sort of treatment, some sort of program, or some sort of counseling. So this is really interesting because let me just say kind of a couple of things very clearly, right? If what the student is doing in terms of their behavior is unsafe for others, then it's unsafe for them. You really can't, we can't have this double standard where we think, well, yeah, they're being really disruptive, but we want to kind of let this stuff slide because we don't want things to be unsafe for them. If it's unsafe for you as an educator, if it's unsafe for other students, it's not safe for that student. Um, the other issue is the question of how will students who struggle with self-regulation and disruptive behavior related to it, how do they learn to self-regulate? Well, the truth is that although programs can be helpful, and certainly there are times and places for counseling, mostly the way students learn to self-regulate is to be in a classroom that is a self-regulating classroom. Specifically, what I mean by that is that it's a classroom with very clear expectations, very clear routines, clear recognition for behavior that is pro-social and healthy and productive, and clear consequences for behavior that crosses a line that's not appropriate. So, ironically, what educators are doing when they let go some of behavior that's really disruptive is that they're actually not helping the student. That's not being trauma sensitive. That's not being inclusive. That's not promoting good mental health. We're enabling students to continue to have behavior that's not healthy for them, and it's not healthy for others, and it's not good, for them in the long run. So actually, if we want to be helpful, if we really want to support their mental health, if we really want to be trauma sensitive, it's about setting very clear expectations in the classroom and guardrails in terms of what's appropriate and what's not, and then giving that student feedback, giving them the form of positive, feedback in terms of recognition, when again their behavior is productive and healthy and pro-social, and feedback when they've crossed that line in terms of natural and logical consequences. The only real way that students who struggle with dysregulation and behavior that's related to that are going to learn is they learn that in real time with real routines, real expectations, and real feedback. And then slowly but surely over time, that sort of those outward sort of expectations of how one needs to conduct oneself will be internalized by that student. But of course, it won't be easy. It will be slow. It will be, month to month, possibly even year to year, that they will learn through, the classroom culture how to manage their behavior, how to manage their emotions, and ultimately how to self-regulate. So, in short, if your students are not self-regulating and some of that's leading to behavior, as I said, that's disruptive and crossing a line of what's acceptable, then your classroom needs to regulate them until they can do it for themselves. A highly permissive classroom is not actually helping them, it's actually teaching them that this kind of behavior is acceptable. Of course, I mean, you have to do this with a lot of care and compassion, and it has to be developmentally appropriate for that student. There's going to be behavior that you're going to logically say, okay, that's not ideal behavior, but I'm going to let that slide because that's acceptable, or that's a little bit difficult, but that's okay. But we're talking about behavior that is, a reasonable expectation for a student based on their age. And they might not be able to do it now, but with those guardrails in place and with lots of feedback, positive and negative, they will slowly learn that this is how you operate in a classroom. This is how you operate with your teacher. This is how you operate with your peers. So I would just underline that if we really, really want to support the success of those students who are struggling, um, we need to be, not confused about saying, well, then we have to let this stuff slide all the time and be permissive because as I said, we may be enabling that behavior rather than helping them learn to have different behavior. Um, and well, that's about it. I just a safe environment. It needs to be emotionally safe. It needs to be psychologically safe, and it needs to be physically safe for everyone. So, a safe environment and an environment that supports mental health and well-being is not one where we make it possible for students to really engage in activities that are hurting others and potentially hurting themselves in the long run. A safe environment is a structured environment, one with routines and one with clear expectations, and one in which that student is getting feedback in real time, always about what kind of behavior is expected and productive, and what kind of behavior is disruptive and not acceptable. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up. that it's not about sending students off to get self-regulation skills training program or therapeutic intervention. It's about the day-to-day school and classroom climate that is going to ultimately help that student learn to function successfully in a classroom and in society. It's those routines and expectations and feedback that are going to be vital to their success. So, you know, I know that there are, so many well-being, incredibly kind, incredibly compassionate educators out there who are saying, I don't want to shame my student when they're misbehaving. I know they're struggling. I don't want to make them worse. But, you're not shaming them by holding them accountable. You are helping them. You're helping them learn and grow and develop. It may be hard in the short run, but it will pay off for them and everyone else in the long run when you hold them accountable. So I know it's a hard time to be an educator. There's a lot going on in classrooms, but I think if we can shift our thinking to creating classroom and school environments that have very clear, fairly high expectations in terms of behavior and then lots of feedback all the time, I think we can get back on course in education so that this sort of post-pandemic stuff that's happening around disrespect and even violence in the classroom, we can start to tackle. We're not doing any favors to anyone by not tackling that. So, best of luck in all you do, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.